everybody, I am Manpreet Uppal, Advisory Director, Prism Philosophy, and along with that an educationist, a trainer and executive coach, and of course extremely passionate about business communication. Today we move along with the video on business correspondence, and into the unit on business correspondence we look at the principles of letter writing. Before going any further, let me explain the structure of this video series. We will be looking at specific components like the objectives of the video series, introduction to the unit, basic principles of business letter writing, moving further to form and arrangement of a business letter, form of a letter, arrangement of a letter, and supplements to the arrangement of a letter. However, it is important here to add that not all of the structure will be covered in this video, so we will break it up in part 1 and part 2. The first part confining itself only to the introduction, objectives and basic principles of business letter. Having completed the 2 videos into this series, a student should achieve a certain set of objectives. The objectives at the end of completing this 2-part video series would be: number 1, to explain the basic principles of business correspondence, to describe the format and arrangement of a business letter, and finally write various supplements of a business letter. Let's begin with the introduction. Letter writing is an important and an effective tool in clinching an issue in almost every field. Although talking and discussing an issue over phone is helpful, no doubt, it has some limitations. The most important being the time constraint and involvement of only 2 persons. On the other hand, in the form of a letter, you put some proposal or argument concrete in hand, which may be deliberated upon and given due thought in a relaxed manner. You can be reading it repeatedly, you may be looking at it multiple times, which may not be possible in a phone call. However, a letter might act in both ways, and this is a word of caution. While a nicely drafted and appropriately worded letter may be helpful in achieving your objective, a poorly drafted and inappropriately worded letter may act as a spoiler and in fact make your job extremely difficult. In view of this, it is important and utmost relevance to understand that a business letter is drafted carefully in a manner such that it conveys your feelings and purpose in a concrete and precise manner. But at the same time, it should not offend the feelings of the recipient and encroach on his precious time unnecessarily. Please respect the time of the audience. Please respect your own time too. Let's not deliberate and let's not waste unnecessary important time. There are certain principles of letter writing, and good writers should try to follow these principles while writing a business letter. As we go further in this unit, you will be acquainted with the basic principles of business correspondence and the format and arrangement of a business letter. Let's begin with understanding first of all the basic principles of a business letter. Beginning here, to convey any message effectively, business letter writing needs the application of certain clear communication principles. They provide the basic structure or the format and the guidelines for the content and the style of preparation. Trust me, following all the principles, it becomes an extremely important and effective letter. Let's take a quick read. The basic principles of a business letter are: number 1, clarity and coherence. Number 2, consideration. Number 3, brevity. Number 4, we are talking about courtesy and friendliness. Number 5, conciseness. 6, correctness. 7, completeness. 8, originality. 9, neatness, and finally the 10th, which is effectiveness. Let's go into all of these 10 principles in many more details. I am beginning now with the first one, which is clarity and coherence. In order to be effective, a good business letter should be concise, precise, relevant, concrete and consistent. Be clear about what you want to say and then say it clearly. Avoid the use of difficult words and vague language. skip the jargon. Also, the content of the letter should always flow in unity. Letters written in a logical fashion show consistency of thoughts. One thought should follow the other, and the flow of information should go in a sequential manner. Word selection and phrasing leads to successful transfer of meaning from the sender to the receiver. Careful word selection enhances the writer's reputation and reflects the business's reputation, this being an add-on to getting your purpose achieved. Think of the advice a home seller receives before an open house. They will often have bread baking or apple cider simmering to create an aroma that makes the house feel more like a home. This small step might help a potential buyer make the right choice. Solid writing skills can have the same effect on the employee. The employee gains respect and appreciation because of the writing skills that project credibility and confidence. And the reader obviously trusts you and you've got the deal. Let's go further. The second principle, we are looking at consideration. The writer of the letter should always place himself in the position of a reader and give consideration to what does he need. Emphasize on you attitude instead of the I attitude. For example, it might be improper to say, we sold 50 cars of this description last month. The proper format could be, you and other businessmen like you bought 50 cars of this description in the last month. You are considering your reader. Consideration means writing every letter with your reader in mind. It also means acting on the you attitude. When we put ourselves in the reader's place, we are considerate. We are understanding the reader's desires, the problems, the circumstances and the emotions. This thoughtful consideration is exactly the you attitude. Learn to empathize, and that is what will make your communication always more effective. Moving on, the next word that we need to look at here is brevity. A good business letter should be concise and exact. Economy of words is possible only if the writer of the letter has extensive vocabulary at his command. A long letter containing irrelevant matter gives a poor impression of the writer and also of the business house. But for the sake of conciseness, completeness or clarity should not be sacrificed. The letter must explain in totality what it all desires. Be conscious that the reader does not have much time. Do not say, our office will require a new centrally air-conditioned set up in a due course. Why don't you replace it with, soon we will centrally air-condition our office. We are conveying the necessary information, not keeping any information back, and at the same time we are using the minimum use of words, and that's what exactly it is all about. Convey all, but be crisp, be concise, use the concept of brevity. So do not say, permit me to thank you profusely. Just say, thank you. We often come across letters that say, I am enclosing herewith the demand draft as required by you. It is not only verbose but is also grammatically unacceptable. Let's drop it. Let's move on to the concept of brevity. Having talked of the concept of brevity, the next one that comes our mind immediately is the principle of courtesy and friendliness. The tone of the business letter should always be courteous and polite. Courtesy should not be restricted to obligatory words like thank you or please. There must be politeness even in declining a proposal. And again, going back to brevity, in an attempt to make a letter short and crisp, do not forget the polite salutations. They are definitely a mandatory and a super important part of your letter. Words like please and kindly always bring a positive response. However, such words ought to be used without sacrificing one's self-respect and dignity. Whether you see your clients and customers on a regular basis or communicate with them electronically through multiple zip codes and oceans, it is critical that the content of your formal business correspondence reflects the same level of politeness and thoughtful attention to detail that would have shown if you were into any other exchange. Moving further, let's talk about conciseness. A business letter, like I said earlier, should respect the reader's time, the reader's attention. Keeping that in mind, the business letter should be concise and direct, written in simple language with a natural flow of words. Wordy phrases and high flow expressions should be avoided. They do not create an impression, so if you think use of such phrases is making it any better, it really isn't. The letter should not contain quotations or words which are pedantic or bookish and which sound artificial. We are, after all, not here to create literature. We are here to create and spread information and get a meaningful information. Let's stick to our objectives. Business people are very, very busy people and they may be irritated by unnecessarily lengthy letters. Therefore, please focus directly on the message. At the heart of the business is the idea that time is money. This may lead you to believe that shorter messages are always better. However, concise writing is not just fast or short. Sometimes your writing must balance the clarity of the message with the efficiency. At this point, let me reiterate, while it is important to keep your letters concise, use smaller words, smaller phrases, do not in that attempt try to skip important or imperative details. So, it is a balance between clarity versus conciseness. Moving on, we talk about the next concept of correctness. A business letter should be grammatically correct and factually accurate. Incorrect information and inaccurate facts conveyed through a letter are bound to make the position of the writer vulnerable. The addressee may stop further dealings with the writer of the letter. In letters of inquiry, orders, complaints, references, etc., information should always be given in a correct and accurate fashion. If for some reason it is not possible at that point to communicate the necessary information, the reason must be clearly stated. In fact, you may go the extra mile to apologize for not being able to supply the information when required. A business letter is less formal than a scholarly writing, but it should not degenerate to a substandard slang level. Business communication will have the quality of correctness if unnecessarily formality and jargon are avoided. Of course, the sentences should be grammatically correct. Let's take a look at a few examples. Example number 1, and the statement is, we invite all employees to participate in the annual get-together. Let's correct this. All employees are requested to join in the annual get-together. Simpler, crisper, correct. Let's look at another example. The management made attempts to ascertain the views of the employees. Let's have a simpler and a correct form to this. The management tried to find out the workers' views. Doesn't that sound simple? One more. The police interrogated the neighbors. Let's make it simple. The police inquired or questioned the neighbors. We are still conveying the information and we are doing it in a simpler and a more clearly understood way. Moving on further to the next one on our agenda, and this is the completeness of a letter. A business letter should include all the necessary facts and background information that supports the message being sent. An inquiry which does not contain necessary particulars or explanation which is partial is never appreciated. An incomplete letter may compel the receiver to make further correspondence on the subject involving a waste of time or prompt him even to act according to his own judgment. And this, by the way, may lead to disputes. Let's overcome all of that. Completeness prevents the need for further communication, amending, elaborating and expounding in the very first attempt, and thus saves our times and resources. Therefore, very important to stick on to the concept of completeness. Moving on to the 8th, we are now looking at the concept of originality. Originality of form, expression and style are often necessary to make a business letter more appealing, particularly when used for sales promotion and on special occasions such as introduction of a new product. Indeed, with the changing times, old and stereotyped forms and expressions have been replaced by more appealing forms, expression and style of presentation of matters in business letters. For instance, the layout of the contents of a letter is often intended to mark out significant lines. New phrases are used in place of old ones, and a conscious attempt is made to give a personal touch wherever necessary. Moving still on, and we are now talking about neatness of a letter. Ever get a business document that has coffee or other stains on it? It happens, but not to professionals who are serious about their work. Yes, please be watchful. It is important to make sure your hard copy materials leave the department or office clean and undamaged. A neat and tidy letter, clearly typed or written on a reasonably good paper with proper paragraphing, makes a letter attractive to the reader. Any overwriting, rubbing or cutting of expressions, improper spacing between paragraphs, etc. do not create a favorable impression. So, the appearance of a business letter should be impressive, neat and tidy to the maximum extent possible. Finally, let's bring it down to effectiveness. The ultimate goal of a business letter is to evoke the desired response in a positive manner within a stipulated time, reasonable time frame. Obviously, delayed or negative responses show the ineffectiveness of a letter. The time and stationery used in writing such letters involve wasteful expenditure. Thus, effectiveness may be regarded as the most essential feature for a business letter. Having completed all of the essentials, now let's talk a little bit about proofreading. Proofreading. Though proofreading is not an essential part of a writing letter, it is very important precautionary aspect of business correspondence. A good letter can be ruined by a careless attitude towards grammatical and typing errors. Thus, wrong spelling of names, incorrect numbers typed, and failure to enclose specified items, as insignificant as they may sound, need to be corrected before a letter is signed. Proofreading is essential for correcting grammatical mistakes, errors of spelling and typing errors, and therefore proofreading is indeed a double check on any competency. Finally, let's try and capture all of what we've learnt in this video by way of our next 10 list. This is the list of 10 commandments. Commandments which are extremely important and should be at the top of your mind when you're creating a good business letter. Let's take a read. The first one, write as you would talk, which means be natural. Do not fake unnecessarily just to beautify a letter. Next, be courteous and friendly. Always maintain the polite tone of the letter. Harsh worded and strong language, trust me, always defeats the true purpose of the letter. It has never worked for anybody. Commandment number 3, be natural. Do not use flowery language or jargons just to disguise your thoughts. People see through you, it won't work. Commandment number 4, learn to visualize your reader and be helpful. Empathize. Feel what the reader would feel while reading your letter to help him understand it better. Commandment number 5, keep an open mind. Appreciate your reader's point of view. Accept criticism within a positive way. It will only help you improve the next time. You are just getting better. Commandment number 6, practice real diplomacy. Talk polite, talk effective, talk smart. Commandment number 7, be willing to admit mistakes. All of us make mistakes, many a times. Apologize and correct your faults. Do not be adamant on not accepting them. You're just making it worse. Commandment number 8, write clearly and to the point. Effective letters are always crisp, focused and agenda specific. Commandment number 9, tell your readers what they want to know. Understand readers' thought. Do not unnecessarily harp what you want to talk. Understand, do they really want to hear this? Do they need the information? And share accordingly. And finally, dramatize the letters, show them reasons. Every thought has to have a reason. Be vocal in sharing your reasons. This will always help the audience connect better. With that, we close the basic essentials of letter writing. I hope you enjoyed watching the video. See you again. Thank you so much.